want you to picture something for me. You're driving an old car up a really steep mountain pass.
Okay.
The engine is sputtering, it's, knocking, it's really struggling to make the climb.
Right.
Now, the way we traditionally treat heart failure, the standard medical model, is basically like trying to help that car by tossing weight out of the trunk.
It's a strategy of unloading. And look, it works. It absolutely saves lives. But it does ignore a pretty fundamental question.
Exactly. What if the problem isn't just the weight of the car? What if the engine is simply out of gas?
And that is the absolute core of what we call the bioenergetic deficit. It's not a plumbing problem, not just pressure in pipes. It's a power failure. The heart is an energy-starved engine.
And right at the center of this whole energy crisis is a molecule that I think most of us associate with the impulse buy section of the pharmacy.
Oh yeah, right next to the gummy vitamins.
Coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10.
It definitely has a bit of a marketing problem. You see anti-aging creams, energy drinks, and it's plastered with CoQ10. And your brain just files it away as fluff.
But the physiology tells a very, very different story.
It really does.
And that's what we're unpacking today. We're trying to strip away those glossy labels and just look at the hard science, the biochemistry.
We've got some great sources here. A state-of-the-art review from the AHA's journal, Circulation, Heart Failure, and a really thorough literature review from the BMJ's Open Heart Journal.
These are the heavy hitters. Our mission is to figure out if this molecule is actually a missing link in cardiac energy or if it's just, expensive urine.
Let's find out.
So let's start at the beginning. I think most people remember from high school biology that mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell.
The one thing everyone remembers.
Right. But our notes here describe CoQ10 as the spark plug. Is that an accurate way to think about it?
It's a decent shorthand, but the reality is a little more mechanical. Think of your mitochondria like a factory's assembly line. You've got these workers passing materials down the line to eventually create a finished product. For the cell, that product is ATP adenosine triphosphate.
And ATP is the fuel, the actual currency of energy.
It's the fuel. Without ATP, your heart muscle literally cannot contract, period.
So where does CoQ10 fit into this factory line?
It's a critical worker right in the middle. The assembly line is called the electron transport chain. You have these first stations, complex I and complex 2, that are generating electrons.
Yeah.
But those electrons have to get to the next station, complex 3, to keep the energy moving. CoQ10 is the shuttle. It physically grabs the electrons from the first two stations and carries them to the third.
Oh, so it's like a bucket brigade putting out a fire.
That is a perfect visual. CoQ10 is the person standing in the middle of the line, passing the buckets. Now imagine that person just decides to take a coffee break.
The buckets pile up, water doesn't get to the fire, the whole thing grinds to a halt.
Precisely. The flow of electrons stops. And if that flow stops, you don't generate ATP. The engine stalls. And you have to remember, the heart is the most metabolically demanding organ in your body. It beats 100,000 times a day.
It doesn't get a coffee break.
Never. It burns through roughly 6 kilograms of ATP every single day.
6 kilograms? That's insane.
It recycles it, of course, but the throughput is just massive. So if your CoQ10 levels drop even a little bit, the efficiency of that whole bucket brigade plummets.
And there's a second role it plays too, right? The antioxidant part. I feel like antioxidant is another one of those buzzwords we hear all the time.
It is, but in a failing heart, it's absolutely vital. Think of it as rust protection for the engine.
Okay.
When that engine is running hard, it produces exhaust. We call that oxidative stress. That stress can damage the cell walls. CoQ10 sits inside the cell membrane and prevents that damage. It stops the machinery from rusting out.
So we have a molecule that both moves the fuel and protects the engine.
A dual role.
Now, the sources mention this severity correlation, which basically says the sicker you are, the less CoQ10 you have.
It's a really stark correlation. They use the New York Heart Association classes, the NYHA classes. Class I is mild, you're walking around fine. Class 4 is severe, you're short of breath even at rest.
Right.
When they take biopsies of actual heart tissue, they find that a Class 4 patient has significantly lower CoQ10 levels than a Class I patient.
So it's a sliding scale. As the disease gets worse, the tank just gets emptier.
Which leads to that big chicken or the egg debate. Does the lack of CoQ10 cause the heart failure? Or does the process of heart failure just burn through all the available CoQ10?
We don't really know for sure.
Not definitively, but we do know that restoring those levels seems to help.
But this is where the story took a turn. The I have to say it actually made me angry when I was reading it. It's what we're calling the drug paradox.
Oh, it's one of the great ironies in modern cardiology.
Yeah.
Truly.
I mean, we have these gold standard drugs. Statins for cholesterol, beta blockers for blood pressure. These are the drugs that are supposed to save people.
The cornerstones of therapy.
And then this BMJ review points out that these same drugs might actually be sabotaging the energy supply.
Sabotaging is a strong word, but mechanistically, it's pretty accurate. Let's take statins. They're incredibly effective at lowering cholesterol. They do this by blocking an enzyme in something called the mevalonate pathway.
The mevalonate pathway. Sounds like a highway.
Well, let's imagine it is a highway. You're driving down this road, and it eventually splits. One exit goes to Cholesterolville, the other exit goes to CoQ10 town.
Okay, I'm with you.
Statins don't just put a roadblock on the exit to Cholesterolville. They put up a massive roadblock at the very beginning of the highway.
So they block traffic to both towns.
Exactly. You successfully stop cholesterol production, which is the goal. But as collateral damage, you also block the production of CoQ10 friend. The body uses the same raw materials for both.
So you're telling me that millions of people are taking statins to protect their heart, but in doing so, they are depleting the very fuel the heart needs to function.
And not just the heart. This is a big reason why muscle pain and fatigue are such common side effects of statins. Your skeletal muscles need that ATP too.
Wow.
But in a heart failure patient who is already running on fumes, this depletion can be critical.
And it wasn't just statins, right? The notes mentioned beta blockers, too.
Yes, the mechanism is a bit different, but the effect is similar. Beta blockers can inhibit some of the enzymes required to synthesize CoQ10.
So you have a patient with a failing heart. We put them on a statin and a beta blocker, which is the guideline-directed therapy. We're unloading the heart, we're slowing it down, we're protecting it.
But we're also cutting the fuel line.
It just explains so much about why patients can be medically optimized. You know, their numbers look great on paper, but they still feel exhausted. They can't walk up a flight of stairs.
Yeah. It's that difference between hemodynamics, blood flow, and bioenergetics, the actual fuel. We've become masters of the flow, but we've kind of neglected the fuel.
So, okay, the logic seems like a slam dunk. If the tank is empty and the drugs might be making it emptier, we should just pour some CoQ10 back in. Supplementation.
Seems obvious.
But looking at the history of these clinical trials, it's been a real mess.
Mess is being polite. For about 30 years, the research on CoQ10 was, it was all over the map. You'd have one study calling it a miracle and the next saying it did absolutely nothing.
Why such a huge discrepancy?
The science itself wasn't bad, but the study designs were often flawed. A lot of the early studies were tiny, like 20 or 30 people. You can't prove anything with that. Or they used formulations that didn't absorb well.
Okay.
But there's a really interesting nuance in the meta-analyses, specifically the Sander and Fatino studies that caught my eye.
This was the part about ACE inhibitors.
Right. They were looking at ejection fraction, or EF. That's the percentage of blood the heart pumps out with each beat.
A key measure of heart function.
Exactly. CoQ10 seemed to boost EF by a decent amount, almost 7%. But, and this is the key, only in patients who were not taking ACE inhibitors.
And what about the patients who were on them?
The benefit just plummeted. It dropped to about 1%.
That seems really discouraging since almost everyone with heart failure is on an ACE inhibitor now.
It does, but it doesn't necessarily mean the drug cancels out the supplement. It could just be that ACE inhibitors are so effective they mask the benefit. Or, and this is the more interesting theory, it suggests CoQ10 might be most effective in the very early stages of the disease, sort of salvaging the heart muscle before you need to bring in the heavy hitter drugs.
So the data was just murky. We had some hints, we had theories, but no smoking gun.
Not until CoQ10
The CoQ10 trial. This is where everything shifted.
We'll get to the game changer.
Our notes call it the heavy hitter. So set the stage for us. What was this trial?
This was published in a top-tier journal, JCCD, Heart Failure. It was multi-center, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, everything you want to see. 420 patients with moderate to severe heart failure.
So not a tiny study. This was the real deal.
The real deal. And the protocol was standard therapy plus 100 milligrams of CoQ10 3 times a day, or a placebo.
300 milligrams total. Okay, now here's the part that I found so dramatic. They check in on these patients at 16 weeks, so 4 months in. And what did they find?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
No significant changes. The 6-minute walk test, the same.
Yeah.
BNP levels, a key blood marker, the same. Symptoms were basically a wash.
So it didn't work.
Well, if this had been a typical pharmaceutical trial, the board might have just shut it down right there and said it failed. Pack it up.
Why didn't they?
because the researchers understood the mechanism. Remember, you're not just trying to change a blood pressure number. You're trying to heal the mitochondria. You're trying to rebuild the energy capacity of the cells themselves.
It's like planting a garden. You don't see flowers the next day.
Exactly. It takes time. So they kept going. For 2 full years.
Then at the 2-year mark,
The patients paid off in a way that, frankly, shocked the cardiology community. The curves on the graph didn't just separate, they completely diverged.
give us the numbers.
So they looked at major adverse cardiovascular events. That's heart attacks, strokes, death. In the placebo group, 26% of patients had a major event.
And in the CoQ10 group?
15%.
Wow, that's a massive drop.
It is. But the mortality number is the one that just grabs you. Cardiovascular death was reduced by 43%.
Wait, hold on. 43%.
43%.
If a drug company released a new pill tomorrow that cut cardiovascular death by 43%, it would be the biggest story in the world. Their stock would triple.
Absolutely. It would be a blockbuster drug overnight.
So why isn't it? I mean, Q10 came out years ago. Why is CoQ10 still just a class 3 recommendation? The guidelines basically say don't bother. Why?
It really comes down to statistical conservatism and, honestly, a little bit of a too good to be true bias.
Meaning they just don't believe the numbers.
In modern heart failure trials, we are used to fighting for inches. A new drug comes out and it improves survival by 10%, maybe 15%, and we celebrate. When a study shows a 43% reduction,
Scientists get suspicious.
they immediately think this has to be an outlier, a statistical fluke.
Is it the sample size? You said 420 people?
And that's the other part of it. 420 is a respectable number for a supplement study, but for a landmark heart failure trial that changes guidelines, we usually want to see 4,000, 8,000 patients.
Right.
The total number of deaths in the Q-Symbio study was actually pretty small, so a swing of just a few patients, one way or the other, could really skew those percentages.
So the medical establishment is basically saying, show me again, but bigger.
Exactly. They want replication in a massive trial. And until someone is willing to fund that, which is really hard for a non-patentable supplement, the guidelines will probably say cautious.
That's so frustrating. But for you listening at home, maybe thinking about your own health or parents' health, you're not writing guidelines, you're making personal decisions. So the obvious question is it safe?
Right. What's the downside?
If I take this and it doesn't work, am I out anything other than some money?
Generally speaking, the safety profile is excellent. In the Q-Symbio trial, the CoQ10 group actually had fewer side effects than the placebo group. We're talking about very minor things, a little nausea, maybe a rash. It's very well tolerated.
I feel a big however coming.
There is one major red flag exception, and this is critical. If you are taking warfarin.
Coumadin, the blood thinner.
Right. So warfarin works by blocking vitamin K, which is what helps your blood to clot. By blocking it, warfarin keeps your blood thin. The problem is, the CoQ10 molecule is chemically very similar to the vitamin K molecule. They're like structural cousins. So if you flood your system with CoQ10, it can actually compete with the warfarin.
Oh, no.
It can essentially act like vitamin K, promoting clotting.
Which would cancel out the blood thinner?
Exactly. It can lower your INR, which is the measure of how thin your blood is, and suddenly you aren't protected from clots anymore.
That is seriously dangerous.
It is. So if you are on warfarin, you absolutely cannot just start taking CoQ10 on your own. You have to talk to your doctor, and you would need to monitor your INR very, very frequently.
So that's a vital takeaway.
For everyone else, it's generally safe. But for warfarin patients, it is a strict proceed with extreme caution.
Okay, good. Let's get into the practical weeds then. Let's say a listener is cleared by their doctor. They go into the pharmacy, and there are just shelves of this stuff. Capsules, tablets, soft gels. Some are $5, some are $50. Does it matter which one you get?
Oh, it matters immensely. You have to remember, CoQ10 is lipid-soluble. It loves fat. It hates water.
So if you buy a cheap capsule that's just filled with dry powder,
your body's going to have a very hard time doing anything with it. It's like trying to dissolve a brick in a glass of water. It will mostly just pass right through you.
you're just paying for expensive waste.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You want a formulation where the CoQ10 is already dissolved in something.
So we should be looking for the soft gels.
Specifically, oil-based soft gels. Soybean oil is very common, and it works well. In fact, the Q-Symbio trial used a formulation that was dissolved in soybean oil. That pre-dissolving step is what ensures it can actually cross the gut barrier into your bloodstream.
What about this whole ubiquinol versus ubiquinone debate? I see ubiquinol marketed as the active form, and it costs twice as much.
It's a bit of a marketing battle. So
Yeah.
ubiquinone is the oxidized form. Ubiquinol is the reduced or active form. And yes, ubiquinol is technically more ready to use by the body,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
your body's perfectly capable of converting the ubiquinone into ubiquinol right there in the gut wall.
So you don't necessarily need to pay that premium.
The data suggests that if you have a good oil-based delivery system of standard ubiquinone, it works just fine. I mean, the Q-Symbio trial, the one with the 43% mortality reduction, used ubiquinone.
That's a great point. If the old stuff worked in that landmark trial, it's probably good enough.
I think so.
And what about cost? Because 300 milligrams a day, that's not a small dose.
No, it's an investment. Based on current prices for a high-quality oil-based supplement, you're looking at somewhere between, say, $150 to $350 a year.
Which, when you compare it to a new prescription drug that might be $500 a month, it's pretty reasonable.
It's accessible, but again, it is an out-of-pocket cost, and that's a barrier for some people.
So let's bring this all back to the big picture. We started with that car engine.
The sputtering engine on the steep hill.
And we've learned that heart failure isn't just about pressure and volume. It is a fundamental crisis of energy. The mitochondria, that bucket brigade, they're failing to deliver the fuel.
And we've had to face that uncomfortable reality that our best treatments, statins and beta blockers, might be accidentally putting roadblocks on the fuel supply highway.
But there is real hope. The Q-Symbio trial showed us that if we replenish that fuel, if we play the long game and give the heart time to heal its machinery, the results can be profound.
Fewer hospitalizations, longer lives.
But we temper that with the scientific reality. We need more data to change the global guidelines. And we have to be vigilant about safety, especially with blood thinners.
That's the balanced view.
It just really shifts your perspective. I think patients can often feel so passive. You take the pills the doctor gives you and you hope for the best. This research empowers you to ask a different kind of question.
It invites you to look under the hood.
Exactly. I want to leave you with this thought. For 50 years, cardiology has been obsessed with the load. How do we make the car lighter? How do we flatten the hill? And that is important, life-saving work.
But maybe we've hit the limit of what that strategy can achieve.
Right. If the engine is empty, the weight of the car doesn't matter.
If you're pressing the gas and nothing's happening, taking your foot off the brake isn't going to fix the problem. You need to fill the tank.
It makes you wonder how many other conditions we treat by just managing the symptoms while completely ignoring the engine.
That's the frontier of metabolic medicine.
Well, thanks for taking this ride with us. Read the labels, talk to your cardiologist, and keep that engine running. We'll see you on the next deep dive.